Welcome back to Secrets. You may have heard, if not from me on my Black Belt Barrister channel, that the two brothers in the Manchester Airport incident have been charged following the brawl with the police officers at Manchester Airport. Now, just as a warning to you, first of all, I would urge you not to make reports and comments and share information or anything online that may jeopardise an ongoing case that might amount to contempt of court. So that's my warning to you. I'll come back to that throughout the video. But there may well be thoughts and questions that come out of this that I'll try to address neutrally in a very generic sense and not in specific relation to this case. I can only report on what is factually and officially reported on this case, and I cannot give you views that would otherwise jeopardize the case. So I hope that's clear. But as Darren Grimes said here, he's quite right. The wheels of justice turn slowly, and this was at a glacial pace. It's taken many, many weeks for the CPS to come to a decision here. But importantly, a lot of people will be interested to hear that no police officers will be charged following this, because there was obviously a lot of discussion online about the police. Because there was the IOPC investigation into them. They were considering criminal charges against them. The criminal charges are not being pursued, and the IOPC doubtless will come to a decision which may or may not be informed by the CPS decision not to proceed charges against them for this. Now, many of you may also think, well, it's a bit odd that I warn you not to make public commentary and everything else, and yet there was a full press conference by the two brothers. In fact, I just realized you can't quite see that yet, so let me move that in there. There was a full press conference with his their lawyer sat here, their mum sat here, and the two brothers are either side. There was a full press conference here, and essentially blaming the police. I found that a bit odd, to say the least. Usually it would be a bit of a strange idea for lawyers to do full press conferences ahead of any potential charging and so on. But there we go. Now they have been charged. There's some questions that will come out of this as well. Again, I can't answer specifically in relation to this case, but I can give you some general information. Now, CPS confirms that these two have been charged following this incident, and no police officers charged. Frank Ferguson, head of the CPS, said this was a high-profile incident, attracted significant public interest and media coverage at the time, and we worked closely from the outset with investigators from the Independent Office of Police Conduct, etc. I've gone through this in full on my Black Belt Barrister video. I'll link that below. Now, the full confirmation here is actually more easily digestible here from Greater Manchester Police. Says Mohammed Fahir Amaz has been charged with common assault against a member of the public, assault occasioning actual bodily harm. That's a section 47 assault, so it's more than a mere common assault. It's an ABH, an actual bodily harm, which is still not as severe as GBH, grievous bodily harm, which is usually more serious. Also, ABH against a female police officer, so that's one male police officer and one female police officer, and an assault on emergency worker. Now, this is a specific offence against an emergency worker, which is sometimes differentiated from other ABH charge and common assault charges. Again, I can't comment specifically about this case, but there is guidance I'll come back to in just a second as to how those may be differentiated. Mohammed Ahmad, assault occasioning actual bodily harm, ABH against a male police officer. Now, if we go back to the CPS website here, they do point you quite helpfully to related prosecution guidance for assaults on emergency workers Offences Act 2018. You can click through here and you can go through. So I will link this below so you can go through and have a look. So generally this explains existing summary offences. So, in addition to common assault and battery, where the complainant is an emergency worker, existing summary offences prosecuting are superseded by this, and so assault of a police officer or prison officer, etc. So again, I'll link this below so you can go and have a look. On an entirely separate note, you know that I sometimes partner with some really great companies on my channels here, and today's is a really fun one. It's called Holy. They produce iced teas, energy drinks and hydration drinks, but not the kind of drinks that would be full of what I would call rubbish. These are full of vitamins, antioxidants, and they are really tasty. My favourite of all time has got to be the strawberry and kiwi. However, right now there are some limited edition Christmas flavours, including Frosty Fox, which is a really cool and refreshing drink, a lovely warm cinnamon and plum, which is really tasty, and my personal favourite, which was baked apple borer, which was also my favourite when I filmed this for my main channel, Black Belt Barrister.
And this one is the baked apple. That's nice. That's probably my favourite. Well, that is really like a pie baked with apple. Really quite nice.
Not only are there new flavours and discounts for Christmas, but there is a new customer deal if you buy the Starter Set Deluxe, in that you get a free thermo shaker, so you can enjoy these drinks hot or cold. And on top of that, you get my discount code, which is either £5 off using Secrets5 or 10% off if you just use the code Secrets. If you want a larger order or an ongoing order, you can apply that, and if you like to work with percentages, just use the code Secrets at the checkout, and that will apply these discounts on top of the discounts already on the page here. Together with other freebies available on the site with purchases while they last, you can get in quick. These are really tasty, they're really refreshing, and I promise you, you won't regret it. They are really easy to make up. You fill the shaker with water, 1 spoon of powder, you give it a good shake, and you get a refreshing drink in just a few seconds. So treat yourself or someone else for Christmas, get these delicious drinks, use my link and discount code in the description below, and Merry Christmas.
But more generally speaking, some people may have asked in relation to this case, why it is that these specific charges have been chosen, and why not something more serious. Some people may ask that question. Now, obviously, I cannot comment specifically on that, but generally, you understand, I can point you to a very useful article by Magistrate's blog. I'll tag in the post that goes out, which describes the scenario where there may be frustration, that where the decision is made to charge someone with an offence, that it is of fundamental importance that it is the correct offence that is charged. Just giving you a preview here, and I'll link it below, you can go and read the full article, but it says, unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, which can result in an offender being convicted and punished for a lesser offence than the one they actually committed. This phenomenon, which we'll refer to as the charge deflation, is unjust for the victim and can erode public confidence in the criminal justice system. Now, I stress that I'm not talking about this case, the Manchester case, but generally speaking, there may be a number of reasons for that. You may agree or disagree, but generally speaking, what may sometimes happen is that they will charge a much lesser offence because they are more likely to secure a conviction. And obviously, prosecutors want to win the case. In fact, there's a very interesting video by my learned friend Alan Robertshaw on Art of Law. Yes, it rhymes. Talking about the difference really between defence and prosecutor and the objectives and the need to act in the best interest, the need to win, and etc. Very interesting discussion. I won't spoil it. I will link it. I'll try and find it and link it anyway. But it's one of the recent videos. I'll link it there. And so obviously a prosecutor's job is to present the facts. The prosecutor's job is not to decide the charge. The CPS will decide the charge, and then it's the prosecutor's job to take that to court. And so for the prosecutor and everyone at court, there may be these frustrations as to whether or not is the correct offence that's been charged. Now, judges may express their frustration as well. In fact, you might remember in the recent riot trials, people have been pleading guilty to offences for those riots and violent disorder. Judges expressed frustration that they have not been charged with rioting, and they've been just charged as a series of isolated incidents. Whereas the judges were quite frustrated and said, well, if your arguments are that they are rioting, then charge them with rioting. Now, obviously, that is a much more severe potential sentence. But the judges were there saying, well, if these are your arguments, make the charge fit the offence. And so this may lead to frustration. In some cases, you may feel that, let's say, ordinarily, if there are situations, very generally speaking, if there's a situation where someone may have broken bones, etc., that
may reasonably be charged as GBH, whereas very often it may be charged as an ABH. GBH is the more serious. ABH is not to say that it's not serious, but it carries a lower sentence than a GBH would. So I'll leave you to take a look at that article. It's very interesting, and I'll also link the CPS website for generally offences against the person, so you can get a better understanding of what offences are charged with, what typical injuries, and so on. And it's also interesting, you can read about the differences between summary-only offences, those are those that can only be heard in the Magistrates' Court, and either-way offences, those that are triable either in the Magistrates' Court or in the Crown Court with a jury. And those, by and large, depend on the sentences and so on. So I'll link that below for you to look at as well. And now also airing my views and frustrations with the government on its lack of transparency, or apparent lack of transparency, regarding the spending of public taxpayer money. Now, I went through this in a great deal of analytical detail on my main channel video. So I'm not going to repeat everything that I said there on secrets. You'll hear from my views on secrets here, and that's what you'll get. So my views are these. I have a great deal of respect for Rupert Lowe, in that he is absolutely taking this government to task, and he's holding them to account, because there seems to be a lot of obfuscation and just avoiding the question, avoiding providing answers. And you'll see the tone of these letters here. You'll see the frustration, if I can move it so it's on screen properly. You can really see the frustration. You can hear the frustration in the words here. He's been directed to look at the contracts himself. It's the equivalent of go and find out yourself. And he's done exactly that. Now, like I say, absolute credit to Rupert here. He's actually gone and looked at one of these regional contracts worth over £1 billion of money used to care for illegal migrants. Now, as I reiterate on my main channel, this is not an attack upon illegal migrants per se, and it's certainly not to undermine the genuine need they may have for support, etc. What this is transparency and accountability, and the very decisions as to whether it is right and whether we can as a nation afford to do this, or whether they are better cared for elsewhere, where they came from, for example in France. But Rupert, having looked at one of these contracts worth over £1 billion, and then he came back to ask more questions, and quite rightly, reasonably you might say, in my view, it's perfectly reasonable to ask for a breakdown of material of subcontractors and an estimate of incidents that have been reported, and all the translation and interpretation costs of taxis. Just as an aside note here, I know this from people that I know personally, both professionally, privately, etc. None of which I'm going to say here is going to tread on the confidentiality of any cases of any sort, because you won't be able to identify where they are, etc. But actually, one of these stories is from a friend of mine anyway. But one of them, they work for a local authority, and she figured out that they were spending £8 million a year on taxi services for, you choose my words carefully, for people that no longer required those taxis. So in various scenarios, such as schools, such as care centres, care homes and medical facilities, etc., the local authority will arrange transport between different places. Now, my own example of that, my school messed me around, and I was due to start my A-levels, and they said, by the way, we're not doing 3 out of 5 of your chosen A-levels. So I ended up going to 3 different locations. And so initially they said, sort it out yourself. And I said, well, that's not fair. I don't drive, because I didn't drive at the time. I did start driving halfway through the course, but I didn't drive at the time. I said, that's not fair. You've completely ruined my A-levels now, because you're just not running through them. So they arranged transport to and from the second school, and then by the time I went to the third one, I ended up doing 2 A-levels in 1 year because of the whole mess around. I did well, but I did them in 1 year. but they arrange transport for that. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. When they mess up, they arrange transport. And that, as a side note, is a major point about this VAT on private school fees, where thousands of children are coming across to state schools and there are no places. The local authority is under an obligation to provide sufficient schooling, and if not, they'll need to pay for alternatives. But by the by, this friend of mine discovered that they were paying £8 million for taxis for people that no longer needed it. So they did it at some stage. Let's say they needed this taxi for 6 months or whatever. Let's say that they'd been moved into this school or whatever it might be, and they were there for 6 months, and so they needed that transport, and so the local authority agreed the contract to pay for that. And it turns out all they were doing was ringing up and saying, right, we need a car ready for this person on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week for, indefinitely. And so they booked this, and they just put it on the payroll, and they were paying for it. And then obviously over many, I suppose, years, these numbers had grown and grown and grown. And so they were just adding them on, and no one had ever thought to go back and remove those for those people that no longer needed them when they moved off the register of needing transport. And so the cars would turn up ready and waiting, and no one actually thought to remove these people from the list. So that register obviously grew and inflated to a point where they were spending £8 million. This is on top of those that did still require those taxis. They were spending £8 million on taxis for people that had fallen off the requirement list and did no longer require those taxis. And they were paying anyway. This is absolute tip of the iceberg of this waste of money. So when we come to letters like this, the reason I'm quite vocal about these is you see letters like this where this is just one region, one contract for services for illegal migrants. So all of this is for people that are in the country illegally. It is still an offence to enter this country without required permission. That is in and of itself an offence. Some people say don't call them illegal migrants. Well, they are migrating to the UK illegally if they don't have permission, and they are committing an offence by coming here. So they are all offenders by that account. But by the by, these regional contracts, one of which is over £1 billion worth, and Rupert asks all these questions, and their response is, we don't hold the information at the level of the granularity requested. And my response to that is, why on earth not? Why don't you have this data? Just like the example I gave you, this friend of mine said that they spend £8 million a year, this is, for people that no longer need those taxis. Absolutely crazy to think that this is the level of money wasted. I also talked on my main channel about this debate on illegal migration here. Every word in Hansard is recorded, spoken and debated in UK Parliament. You can go and read those. But I go through that in greater detail in my main channel video, so you can go and check that out as well. But my view on this is, when people genuinely need support, etc., I personally know a number of people over the years. I've known a number of people that are now making their lives here, and they were refugees, and they make a great contribution to society. So this is in no way to undermine them whatsoever. This is about the transparency or lack of transparency about where the money is going, how it's being managed, and all of that sort of stuff. So there's a great more to talk about here, but those are my views on that. That's why I talk about it. I think people genuinely deserve the full transparency and to know exactly what's going on. So there it is. Leave me your thoughts and comments below, either about the Manchester Airport incident or about this huge waste of money. Don't forget to check out Holy. They are really, really delicious drinks. They help to support me to continue bringing these videos to you, and I'm truly grateful to them. So with that, thank you for watching me on Secrets, and I'll see you next time.